Hi, I'm Brant Zip at Crocker Farm Auction, and we have an auction coming up on November 3rd, 2018, and so we're just kind of going through some items as we always do and showing them to you in video form and kind of getting into some of the history or backstory of some of the pieces. But you know, if you're new to us, we have 3 auctions a year in which we sell hundreds of lots of antique American stoneware and redware pottery. And one thing we really pride ourselves on is the ability to kind of ferret out particularly rare examples and offer them to the public, sometimes for the very first time. Sometimes, you know, we frequently handle fresh to the market or newly discovered or rediscovered objects. So this is an example of that. So this is a memorial urn, and the inscription is just fantastic on it. You can see the wonderful shape here with this really cool crimping around the circumference, and the use of something that I love, which is the use of both blue cobalt oxide slip and brown manganese oxide slip, almost taking on a purplish color in some places. And you don't see the two of them used in tandem very often in American stoneware, and it's often associated with certain production centers. So we're going to get into that later as we try to talk about where this was actually produced. But at any rate, it has this wonderful folky inscription, "Sacred to memory of Joseph Zuber." And his dates on here are given as born June the 20th, AD 1791, died May the 7th, AD 1843. And adding to like the folkiness of the description, of the inscription, you see sacred is spelled wrong. It's missing the R. Now, when we were given this item on consignment, we were super excited to be able to handle this, and we immediately, as we always do, put on our thinking caps as to where this could have been made. And I would say it has a little bit of a Midwestern look to it, partly because we had trouble pinning down where it was made. Around like the 1820s, potters started to migrate out to Ohio and further west, and you start to see sort of a mixing of styles, and you end up with a lot of really kind of funky looking pieces from Ohio and out that way. And I felt like this sort of fell into that category. Meanwhile, we had some documentary evidence. We always love to dig into period historical sources, and so we had some documentary evidence about a gentleman named Joseph Zuber who had settled in the Midwest. And so we started trying to flesh that out more and see if we could come to an answer, but that was our best lead. Well, fairly recently, like really late in the game, we came across a really great document that sheds a ton of light on this piece. Actually, I'll show you in our auction catalog. This is an 1818 United States Army enlistment roll. So this comes many years before this pot was made. But it lists a Joseph Zuber. And this Joseph Zuber was born in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And when he enlisted, he was living in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, so just west of Harrisburg. Now, what's neat about this is we do get a lot of detail about this gentleman, Zuber. He was 5 feet 8 inches in height. He had brown eyes. He had light hair, and he was fair-skinned. And so his age is consistent with what's on this piece. Now, it's a little off, but it's given as the round number of 30, which you'll often see in these documents where people either are guesstimating or they just throw down a number that's roughly his age. So this could be the same Joseph Zuber. So, but here's the thing that really kind of seals the deal, is it gives his occupation as potter. So this piece is actually heavily related to an iconic example we sold in 2011, which was not a memorial urn, but a memorial jug that was heavily incised as this was, had the gentleman's death date and his name. His name was Benjamin Harrington, and he was a young potter who drowned in Norwich, Connecticut, in the harbor there. And he had been born in upstate New York. And it was made by potters who clearly, you know, were mourning the loss of their friend. And so this is a similar example. We have a piece of stoneware made for another potter who was probably a beloved friend or family member. And so the question becomes, where was it made? Well, the only documentary evidence we now have, and we don't have any beyond that 1818 date, that we now have, is that Joseph Zuber was a central Pennsylvania guy. So then you start to think, well, that sort of makes sense, because one of the big production centers where they did this brown and blue decoration is Huntingdon County, Pennsylvania. It's very well known for that. Now, this isn't an example where this matches up well with the work that was being made there. As in terms of decoration, it's somewhat reminiscent, but it's not the kind of thing where we can say, aha, this is definitely a Huntingdon County example. But the most famous potter working in Huntingdon County was working in the town of Huntingdon, and his name was Henry Glazier. And we also had the Hissong family in Cassville, who was also using this blue and brown decoration and all that. And I don't want to get too hung up on the use of the blue and the brown, but with the combination of the documentary evidence suggesting he's a central Pennsylvania potter, his last known whereabouts were were Carlisle, west of Harrisburg, so on your way out to Huntingdon. It just makes you wonder if perhaps this is, if not a Huntingdon County piece, then some other central Pennsylvania maker who was making this sort of stoneware, very reminiscent of what the Huntingdon County potters were making. But at any rate, this appears to be a great new discovery in central Pennsylvania stoneware. Just as an American stoneware object in general, it just has such a fantastic folk art quality and such a wonderful story behind it of a potter being commemorated in clay after his death. And we're very happy to offer it in our November auction.